Intern ITS Business Intelligence.
Florida ITS Data Warehouse.
Jenny Wong, UCSB Extension.
Vicky Tran, UCSD Extension. Business Extension, Landy Tech.
Gary Henderson, Director of Student Services at Ray School Management. Steve Nelson, Director of Technology at Ray School Management.
Heidi Carter, Student Research. Institutional Research.
Clark Kurtz, Institutional Research.
Robert Musil, Institutional Research.
Quarter Institutional Research.
Right on. Thanks very much, guys. Did the recording start?
I can't tell from my screen. Does your screen say?
It looks like it is. Take over. Welcome, everybody, to our first community meeting for Student Activity Hub. My name is Brett Polak. I'm the Director of Workplace Technology Services. I'm the product owner for Student Activity Hub, and really appreciate everyone's involvement that they've had so far in Student Activity Hub that have contributed up until this point. A special shout out to everyone in the Registrar's Office and in IR that have helped out with a lot of our terms and definitions for Student Activity Hub, which you guys will all benefit from when we move those terms and definitions into our information governance catalog, which will allow us to make sure that we're all on the same page when we're creating reports and analytics within the Student Activity Hub. So with that, I'm gonna, let's see, do my best Vince Kellen impersonation maybe? I don't know. Vince will be joining us a little bit later. So he's going to come in and give a brief introduction about a community of practice and what it means to have a community of practice. We are going to rely upon the community as much as possible. And the community is going to build, I promise. And so as folks are using Student Activity Hub, as they're creating reports and visualizations within Student Activity Hub, we're going to rely upon the community as much as possible to share information. Sarah Parnell, who's going to be our community manager, is going to help facilitate that to ensure that we have meetings like this, that we have office hours. She's going to go over all the ways in which we're going to try to engage the community, but we're really going to try to facilitate and cultivate you guys getting together to showcase what you've done, what your needs might be in terms of any gaps or issues that you're seeing within the product. And then how we might be able to address those from a governance standpoint, so we can sequence activities appropriately based on what the community feels is of interest. So Vince will come in a little bit, and he'll give his kind of overview on maybe how things kind of took place at Kentucky, so that we can apply some of the lessons learned here. Okay, so how many of you are familiar with EDUCAUSE? So most of like our more technical folks on the higher ed side of things. So EDUCAUSE basically is a body that tries to get higher ed together and then look at kind of issues from an IT standpoint, and tries to facilitate folks coming together to share information about what they're doing to solve some problems. So each year, EDUCAUSE pulls together its top 10 IT issues. And as you can see, for 2017, number one was information security, so obviously that's a critical thing these days as well. So we want to address that with anything that we do from an IT perspective. And the second thing, as you can see, is student success and completion. So by no means are we trying to make this stuff up. We aren't the only institution that has a need in trying to cultivate student success as much as possible. So there was a lot of discussion, and I was talking with Vince just about all the presentations that are coming up at this week's EDUCAUSE. It's in Philadelphia. They have an annual conference on next week. A lot of the presentations are about this particular issue. So this is a very hot topic for anyone in higher ed right now, trying to figure out how we can make our students more successful, how we can minimize time to degree, those types of things. And so what we want is to ensure that we make data-informed decisions, which is number 3 on the list right here. So in order to promote student success, we need to have broader access to data. That's kind of the theme of a lot of the talks and presentations at EDUCAUSE this year. And so how do we then go about securing the data, which is number 1, so that we can make broader access to data such that folks can make real-time decisions in order to enhance and make adjustments to programs and things like that on an ongoing basis. So that's definitely the premise behind Student Activity Hub, is trying to ensure that we're meeting those needs from that perspective. So what are some ideas and things that we can do to help promote this, right? So as we were embarking upon this project about a year ago, looking at what problems are we trying to solve with broader access to data. So we started reaching out to a lot of folks in the academic units and trying to figure out what they were trying to do. In addition, could we spark ideas and generate different thoughts about maybe things and questions that they haven't thought of before? And so it was interesting kind of talking with Mohan too on the engineering side and some of the challenges he's had to just try to answer some of these questions and trying to cull data together and identifying maybe data anomalies along the way. So again, this kind of points back to the community, but what are some ideas and use cases that we could help generate that might benefit folks in other departments, and thinking about us as a university as a whole, and maybe not just necessarily within our department division in our silo. The questions that we're asking ourselves in each academic unit, other folks are probably asking as well, and perhaps are coming to IR for guidance on how they could create some visualizations or analytics that might help them answer those questions. So again, there's another slide here that I have that has some of the high-level use cases that that we are, we've kind of collated a bit. And then Sarah's going to help address some of these based on the data that we have currently available within Student Activity Hub, and kind of show some ways in which you might present some visualizations to kind of help answer some of these questions. Now at the link, and we'll send around this presentation to everyone, the link will link out to a document that we have that lists all the use cases. So we have kind of a master document, and that is helping just kind of generate ideas for other things that folks might have an interest in and questions in trying to answer. So please add to those, and let's help kind of cultivate that amongst the community. I know you guys have seen, most of you have seen the scope, but I just want to review that for folks that maybe don't have the same background. We are looking at sourcing 10 years worth of data into Student Activity Hub, and it is coming in from the ISIS mainframe directly. And so we are sourcing data from the mainframe tables into our new data warehouse called HANA from SAP. We are then looking at sourcing that data from HANA over into Student Activity Hub directly. And then, of course, we want to make sure that as we do that, we identify any anomalies and then we clean up data at the source system. So that'll be part of the ongoing process over the next couple months to ensure that we have a clean system when we kind of release it to the wild. We are looking at then additional data feeds from other systems. As we've been reaching out to folks and talking about use cases, we've seen a lot of requests for virtual advising center data. We've talked with the Teaching and Learning Commons about feeding in data feeds from the Red Rock tutor track system. So one of the things we want to do with Student Activity Hub is understand kind of what programs are working and maybe which ones aren't working as much, so we can put our emphasis into the ones that are. So we want to do some kind of real assessment and analysis of our current programs that some of the units now are leveraging. We'll implement access control, and we'll do that directly through Tableau and Cognos. And in reaching out to some folks, some of the questions we get is, can I download the Student Activity Hub data and merge it with my local data source? We want to promote the opposite. We want to try to get your local data into Student Activity Hub such that we are ensuring that we are protecting it from a security perspective. In addition, we can also make sure that the community has access to that data so that we can do further analysis. We want to provide a more and more robust profile of each of the students here. And so doing that, in which we source data into Student Activity Hub as opposed to trying to pull it down, can be a different mindset, but is something that we want to ensure that we're promoting going forward. Integrating our information governance catalog, so a lot of great work's been done to define all the terms that are in Student Activity Hub, and then bringing in our beta test users, beginning with folks that have kind of been with us along the way to help create some visualizations, learn the product, and then help us identify any data anomalies along the way. We'll look at kind of planning a global rollout. We'll have lots of link pages that Sarah and team will be creating, that we have a good, vibrant community. And looking at the phase 1 scope, so getting down to some of the details, and Sarah's going to go into a bit more detail about this, but it's about 220 fields that we're starting off with our phase 1 activities. And through that, we'll be using curated views. So essentially taking a lot of these core data fields that are in ISIS and curating them up into kind of a logical framework that folks could pick from to create the visualizations and analysis. So that's the phase 1. Obviously, this is going to grow. And so we're going to continue to evolve this and through a governance, allow folks to kind of sequence what they feel is the highest priority so that we can get more and more into the system. So by no means is the phase 1 release the end of the day. We're going to continue to enhance the product. Now, in looking at kind of our breakdown of data, these are the high-level classifications that we're starting with, but there's going to be a lot of other things that we're going to be adding to this. We're also going to be adding some kind of predefined calculations like student stats per term and other things that folks can pull into their visualizations to really create some enhanced definitions for things that they might want to drill down on. Looking then at kind of our organizational implications and what folks in the community can do to get ready is looking at getting up to speed on the analytical tools. So we've got a wealth of training that Sarah will kind of touch on in terms of a Pluralsight, which has a wealth of training now for Tableau and for Cognos. And so we're also providing some general training sessions on Student Activity Hub using those tools. So those are things that folks can do to kind of get ready. It's also looking at maybe assigning, at least if you don't have someone in your division or department, some level of responsibility with some analyst duties. That's something I think that folks need to do to start getting ready. In certain cases, they may even give someone this as their full-time job. So this certainly is something that we want to promote to try to get folks ready for what's coming down. That we can't do everything ourselves necessarily, but we'll help try to cultivate and train as much as we can. So we've had a lot of questions about access control. And so one of the things that we developed with Cindy Lyons, the data steward for all of our student data, is for all faculty and staff to have access to the non-identifiable data. And so we want to promote broad access to this data, but in certain cases, we would provide identifiable access to individuals. And we have existing roles right now in the system that we're going to be leveraging for that. I do want to point out that we have some highly sensitive data right now that includes gender identity and ethnicity, classified currently as level P4. We're working hard to try to get that classified up so that we don't have to have that extra layer of access control, such that folks can go out into their departments, access Student Activity Hub, and determine how well they're doing in promoting diversity within their department or group. So that's something that's on the horizon, hopefully, that we can move on very quickly here. That's that. And then I want to point out, too, that we're reconstituting the Data Analytics and Governance Committee. So we want to have good cross-representation between the academic units and the administration. So clearly, we want this kind of dialogue so that folks are hearing from the administration side what the academic needs are. So I think the first meeting for this group, I think, is in December, right, Vince? Is when the next one? November. Okay, great. So
we're working on the schedule.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot of people here.
Easy, right?
Right. Schedules are easy. So yeah, we want to ensure that we are getting all points of view within the new reconstituted Data and Analytics Committee. I think one of the first things on the docket, too, will be looking at that ethnicity data classification and elevating that up. So in terms of the timeline, we're looking at a pilot here in the fall, and then Q1 of next year, we got some really good stuff coming up. So we'll get a little bit more in depth in a later meeting this year into Group Builder and Message Builder and what that might look like. So taking Student Activity Hub data and being able to message students directly based on certain criteria. That will be a capability within the system. And we've started looking at piloting use cases for that as well and providing feedback to SAP, the vendor, for creating that. And again, we'll be looking at sourcing data from other systems, including the Virtual Advising Center, Red Rock, and then the LMS. Obviously, a lot of data about students and their performance within the learning management system. They're currently going through a process where they're determining whether or not they're going to go with Blackboard or maybe another system. So that RFP process is kicking off very quickly. So we'll be in close contact with Dan Suki in the Educational Technology Services Group to ensure that no matter what they choose, that we can get that data and move that into Student Activity Hub. So with this, Vince, do you want to talk a bit about the community? And
Yeah, absolutely.
okay.
I do have a trick question before we start. How many of you believe you are empiricists? We have no empiricists? Yeah, really? We have no empiricists up there? Oh, come on. You're all got to be empiricists, right?
First, a little bit on the Student Activity Hub, and I'll work from here and get this thing away so we don't burn people's ears out. A little bit on my background, just for those who haven't met me. Data warehousing and analytics have been the longest part of my career, pretty much since the beginning of my IT career in both industry and higher education now. And on the Student Activity Hub, I'm intimately familiar with all 220 of those fields plus more. I have a 20-plus year relationship with them, having designed and worked on numerous 3 or 4 or 5 different student data warehouse designs of the past. And so the team here is learning very quickly, both on our side and on the functional side as well, and the business side of it. And I think the hope here, at least for me, is that the data can kind of live free in as many of the decision makers across the campus as possible. We have a lot of students, we have a lot of faculty, we have a lot of what I call things we have to manage, and to manage that well, people need information across the board. But I'm going to start with kind of a statement that I'll say here, and I'll let you react to it. There's probably nothing more vexing than a powerful person with an heroic narrative that needs to come true. So some of you might have experienced that in the past, especially if you're an empiricist, in which you're trying to bring the data forward, and the executives are like not interested in hearing it. In fact, I can relay a story I had years ago when I was in a large consulting firm, and I was pleading with the folks in the corporate office on the 22nd floor to pay attention to the facts on the ground and the data analysis we have in terms of the market, what's going on in the market. And finally, my colleague at that CEO office cut me off. He said, "Vince, you don't understand. On the 22nd floor, we live in a fact-free environment." And I said, "Okay, I won't call you again." Okay. It's extremely important that data be in the hands of decision makers. There's many ways to do this securely and safely. That's not the issue. The issue is the community, you guys, learning and leading in that. So to me, this community is the ground zero, right? So you're the ones who are going to be cultivating and developing the expertise that the campus will rely upon. So how this community fosters and grows will make the difference. Not me, not the system, quite frankly, but the community. And so, I've offered these principles up here, and we've refined them through Elizabeth and a few others here, and they're very similar to what I had at my last role. I call them kind of like clubhouse rules. So if you want to join the club, you got to obey the clubhouse rules. And the clubhouse rules here are simple. Be safe and secure. That goes without saying. And fortunately, there's a lot of capability in systems today to do that. I'm not really terribly worried about that. Yes, I'm worried that we have information all over the place, but by the same token, we have a lot of technology that helps in that process. The second one is to me kind of the most important, be collegial. And by being collegial, that means, we got anybody from Rady or engineering here? Yeah. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's students. So you shall not analyze the data trying to steal students from somewhere else. Follow me? And if you are going to do that, you're going to tell them I'm going to do that. Meaning, be transparent with the plans, right? So the community like this comes together and says, hey, we're researching X, we're researching Y. When there is transparency about the intent of use of data, then the fear can drop and people can say, okay, I get it. I had kind of a very interesting case, and I picked on engineering for a reason. I had an assistant dean in arts and sciences who wanted to use the mobile personalized messaging to send a message targeted to engineering students with a single question. Are you happy with your major? And then he wanted to redirect those students to come to a major fair where they can learn all about the arts and sciences majors. And I had to call Jesse Hedge. He's a great guy, just fantastic guy. So I had to call and said, Jesse, engineering just gave me a call, and you're trying to poach their students. His response was, no, I'm really trying to help with student success. I said, well, engineering doesn't feel that way. Let's go back to the community, and this is under the be collegial principle here, which I want to point out you're kind of, accidentally violating here. And he responded great, and the community was able to come up with a common solution. And that's the point. Get this back to the community. Be transparent. When there's a class of an individual that we have in all organizations that is the data hoarder, it's usually a person who prides themselves, and they're usually very good at analyzing data, and they kind of bring it all together, but they can't really share that with you for whatever reason, and they need to be kind of the font of wisdom. If you're an empiricist, you kind of believe in the scientific method, which is independent validation verification by multiple parties, and that's the way it should be, especially in a complex organization like university. And so following that scientific discipline and research discipline, I think, helps the universities. And so for people to come up to their own conclusions independent to each other really, really helps, especially when they can see the data and verify it themselves. So I had a past, and I have it in the past, of all data and analytics that I ever produced was completely open and completely reproducible, 100% soup to nuts by all the parties who wanted to validate and verify the claims made in the research. We can do that in administration too. And so that be collegial one, I cannot stress it enough. And you guys are the ones who are going to make it live and breathe. But what I've seen happen is that a very proud data hoarder shows up at a meeting and a bunch of you folks are in the room and they make claim X. You guys pop open your laptop and you start manipulating data and you start going, well, no, that claim isn't quite right. And then a dialogue ensues. And that's actually a very good thing, is to get that dialogue to ensue and come to resolution. Improving data quality is extremely important. A lot of people are kind of afraid of exposure of data quality problems. And I just say, hey, it's in the past. That was prior management, prior whatever, prior everything. It doesn't matter. Sure, there's going to be data quality issues. Anytime we enhance analytics, you're going to expose that. But improving data quality is a team game. It requires you guys to say, hey, I think I have a data quality problem here. Put it on an issue list. And the teams, whoever that is, whether it's ITS or whether it's out in the distributed area, looks at and says, okay, the way we're entering the data here is actually incorrect. We need to improve our data entry practice. Or the way the data is being combined into a finished form isn't quite right. We'll go look at that. When data quality gets exposed, it gets cleaned out quickly. And the way to clean it out is to not backstop the data quality change in the analytical system, but to make the data quality change in the source transaction system and let it flow through again. That is the absolute only way to do this. Okay, so I always got to the point in all my data warehousing solutions in higher ed to have 0, 0, 0 backstopped edits. 0. Literally 0. It can be done. It's just, it takes teamwork to get the data right. I think this other concept, being open-minded and inquisitive, for many who analyze data, you already are there. I mean, if you're probably entering the practice because you are open-minded, you are curious. But I also like to say it's not an either-or world in data, it's a both and. So a lot of people say, well, we classify faculty this way. And they say, well, we classify faculty this way. I said, oh, good, let's have both classifications here. In fact, let's have 30 classifications for all I care. We can have as many classifications as we want. And so having multiple classifications, multiple taxonomies brought to bear on any point of data is a very important concept and can and should be done, quite frankly, because differences in those classifications do matter, especially as you look at more intricate analysis examples. Another critical value that Elizabeth Simmons was very good to point out and add is value individual uniqueness. And I think that's also extremely important. A lot of the research I had supported in the past was around student success, for which there are significant differences between students, students coming from very different backgrounds, very different capabilities, and recognition that as we admit, the university has a responsibility to those students regardless of those differences. And that's a very important thing. But you can take that to any dimension of analysis, be it staff, faculty, or whatever. And then the last, and also I put it second right behind be collegial, is share. So the community is meant to share. When I left my last role, we had 1,000 workbooks created by this community. About 100 were created by a central group, be it IR or IT. And in fact, the community was driving the shape of dashboarding and analytics, not the central groups. And I think that's also very important because when the community can do it themselves, their enrichment and understanding of the data and what it means locally is greatly enhanced, and the quality of the decisions improve. And this place is a very complex place here at UCSD. The probability of us central administrators getting it right is not very high. But the probability of more people empowered with data and tools and a good community, those decisions can improve over time. So I'm going to stop this little diatribe or rant or whatever you want to call it and see if you have questions. Yes?
I have a question about data quality.
Yep.
Yeah, so I understand when you said sometimes the data quality has to do with data source. And the only way to fix that is within the source data. But before we can really identify the issue of the data quality, it really takes a good troubleshooting process. And sometimes that involves multiple parties.
Absolutely.
Right? It could be, for technical people, we all know it could be the issue of joins.
Yeah.
Even if the data is perfectly fine, but the way you join.
Yep.
Right? So I think there is also something maybe related to collegial, when there are multiple people involved in this complicated process, how do we all work collegial, especially when issue surfaces? How do we be really analytical and find out where the trouble is?
Well, I be collegial by remembering what my mother taught me. So I think that's personal responsibility on the individual. And then the community can enforce those norms and call people out when it isn't occurring. And so that's, I think, being collegial there. Yeah, in the 20 years I've been doing student data warehousing systems, the data quality issues range even way beyond what you described and can get very complex. The process is actually fairly simple. One raises an issue, the issue goes on an issue list, and then teams start to analyze and resolve. The nice thing about data quality, there tends to be a Pareto distribution of the problem complexity. Few problems are complex, the vast majority of them are simple. And so you can do that as well. What we often call data quality issues is really data classification issues, meaning I cannot classify the data the way I think I want. That isn't so much a data quality issue as is a richness of the system. In terms of joins, one of the key things in this particular Student Activity Hub system is there are no joins that analysts need to make. The data is all joined. So the curated view is designed so that all the variables can be presented to you in such a way that there wouldn't be a need to join, thus eliminating a whole class of error. And in fact, when I started this work 7 years ago, we had joining options available. But the community kept coming back saying, no, don't make us join, you join. Present the data appropriately. Now, if you're wondering, okay, how can that work? Have a separate conversation with me. I am extremely intimately familiar with database design, relational theory, joins, and all flavors and variations of that, and many and all flavors of normalization and database design. And we can go in depth on that, but these curated views were designed so that any analyst, including me, can easily start to construct the visual with minimal work. And in fact, in this particular design, many analysis I have done myself were maybe 2 to 3 hour affairs, soup to nuts, with half of it being colors. You know, what color is my bar? What color is my line? How thick is it? Do I want it left to right, right to left? You know, do I want to swap the axes? Interior design work, visualization work, and I think that's appropriate. So yeah, and so the community can do that. As to collegiality, how do you do it? Well, I'll ask you guys, how do you do it? How do you be collegial? And then how can you help enforce collegial norms? You already know what I'm going to do, right? So if I have to make the tough call and find somebody who's being, you know, needs some education, I'm willing to do that. That's part of my role. I think also what happens, I get, and I had this conversation with a faculty years ago who went from faculty to administration, and she was pleading her case with me and said, I want data to prove my hypothesis. And I looked at her and I said, you got your PhD. When did you throw the scientific method out the window? You go to administration and you forget all that? And she kind of laughed and said, okay, I'm starting to understand. It's deeply personal for many folks, because analysis, first and foremost, just as a human being, you want it to validate your fondest wishes, right? But if you're a true empiricist, you don't want that. You want it to find the truth. And that's much more important. And so, but understand it is human nature to get very vested in what you've done and to make the analysis come out a certain way. So it takes the community to coach us, all of us who do that, out of that a little bit. And so I think you guys are, you know, you're the keeper of this flame. But very good question. Yes, in the back.
I'm not sure if I should. Yeah. Hi, I'm Laura Kurtz. I work in institutional research. And before my question, I should say thank you to your team. I really want to compliment them. Working with Brad, Judy, Laura, and Sarah, their partnership was really valuable. So thank you for that. My question is actually an acknowledgement and then a proposal. I was really happy to see value and visual uniqueness on this slide. Oh, I should mention, within IR, I support the Vice Chancellor for Equity Person.
Oh, sure, yeah. Great.
I was very happy to see this item, value and visual uniqueness, and I want to propose that we can go further. There are a number of principles that would support equity-based analytics as a framework, and I'd be very excited to see us adopt those, make them more explicit, and even offer training where applicable.
Oh, yeah.
So just to give you a case of what I have in mind, on one of the first slides we saw, a question was, which ethnicities take longest to graduate? So if we adopt some of the principles of equity-based analytics, we think about how we label groups and how we bring questions. We might reframe that question to something that's more appreciative rather than deficit-based. So what are the characteristics of students who graduate on time, and how do those differ across groups?
Yeah.
Or something that takes the university's responsibility. How well does our university support students from different groups to graduate on time?
Yeah, and
so we have lots of resources and lots of knowledge of that argument, and I think we have your partner.
Yeah, and the framing of that is important, and a lot of my analysis was in Kentucky, where this was a very acute issue. very acute, given the constitution of the state. And, you know, I'm going to flip it around and turn it into an empirical conversation and to say, okay, what role does ethnicity truly play? Especially when you have a rich set of other variables. And what we discovered is for all major decisions, not as much as one thinks, quite frankly, from an empirical. In fact, it's the wrong question, right? The right question is what are the factors that seem to indicate, especially behavioral factors, that seem to indicate student success? Now, the reason we've landed on ethnicity is largely convenience because of the past requirements to the federal government on reporting those and the convenience of the data collection. But what I have found is that especially as you start to capture data on students once they're here, all of that behavioral and performance data once they're here completely overwhelms the background data in significance and importance as an empirical point. And so absolutely, and I think UCOP has some published guidelines as well on how to potentially tackle that. And so it absolutely would want us to conform with how the UC system and we wish to do that. And training in that is important. But I'm going to flip it and say, if I need to know my students' success by ethnic category, it's probably the wrong question. You know, you should be asking, I want to understand what are the factors that give me the best insight in how to make a change for my students, of which ethnicity may or may not be a concern. And believe it or not, at University of Kentucky, once we had a richer set of data, that variable faded to almost non-significance. Hard to believe, but it's true. In fact, I had to do a bit of research in preparation for race-neutral admissions. And what we found was that we kind of were doing that from an empirical standpoint, just the way the data was being manipulated. And it was entirely the case that race-neutral admissions would actually improve our diversity, not reverse it. Now, that's contextual to that state and its population dynamics, especially when you've got a very strong Eastern Kentucky rural population with its own readiness challenges. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And so the proposal would be any training and education this community can get out in this areas would be greatly appreciated. I'm always going to take this sort of empirical track and say there might be a fallacious argument in the phrasing of the question. Sorry, that's very faculty sort of approach, you know, saying you're asking the wrong question, reframe your question, right? And so, yeah, I think those are all worth considering. Now, part of it is as you start to get deeper and deeper in the data, this will become clearer and clearer. And I cannot stress enough, once you get performance data when the student's here, it truly washes out much of the background data, because now you're seeing evidence of that student changing right here, right now, and you can start to collect that data. So does that help? No.
Thank you very much.
No, it didn't help. Okay.
So I support Laura's point of view on the categories that we define should not be static, predetermined,
Yep.
made.
No,
Rather
empirically made.
There should be behavior and experiential, should be applicable to a blonde white person to that
Yep.
skin person. So there's a consequence to what she said in the sense it is extremely useful based on my experience to collate high school data, community college data, to make it part of this dashboard.
Mhm.
That's where things start. Students' experience, backgrounds,
Yep.
they come here, you want to understand them from their background point of view.
Mhm.
That's the consequence.
Yeah.
So I'll say one more thing. I can't help retort to empiricism. So let me retort in the following way. Census dull the mind.
Pardon?
Census dull the mind. Census dull the mind. So
Oh.
that's my kind of anti-empiricism.
Other questions? What groups do we have represented here? We got,
You missed our introductions.
oh, introductions, so I won't do it again. So,
We have admissions folks, IR folks in the academic units, biological sciences,
Yeah.
physics school, reading. Who else?
Extension.
Extension.
yeah. And we, you know, and when you get further into analysis, this conversation of, you know, variables that cause people's hearts to flutter. There's more. There's more ahead of us. Trust me, in more categories. And so my counsel is become an empiricist and look more broadly and holistically at the data, understand the theories you're applying, and do a good job of that, and then be very, communicate well with each other and kind of see where you can improve your teammates' game, right? So when I called Jesse in my last role, it wasn't to admonish him. It was to see if I could help him improve his game. Because he'd done so many things for me in the same way in the past. So that's, I think, the way it should be in this community. How can we help each other improve our game? Other questions? Thank you. The revolution begins here with you guys, right? And my sincerest goal is that you become executive proof. Meaning top-level executives can't mess with you guys. You guys got it all kind of handled. So if one wishes to have enduring change like that, it's going to require a community like you guys to do it. Thank you.
Hi, I'll be the next presenter. My name is Sarah Parnell, and I work for Judy White. I will be one of the community leaders, but more of in an administrative point of view and a facilitator of the community, because you guys are really going to be the ones driving the community, because you are the core. One of the things we've talked about with the community is how do we exchange ideas? How do we get that feedback out there? How do we get the ideas expressed across the entire group? And we've put together a short list of how we can communicate with each other. We do have an email distribution list. You've all been added to it, where you can post your ideas of how to use the Student Activity Hub data, general questions you have, any questions you have about the data, any type of definitions, any question about where it comes from. Because chances are there's somebody in the community who can answer that question faster than anybody on Judy's team. So we want all of you to become experts in your area, in the data, so that you can help others and answer any question that might pop up. Now, we also talked about the future of the Student Activity Hub and how we are going after other data sources, and we want your data sources wherever or however they might be, whether they're in an Excel spreadsheet right now or whether they're in a SQL server or another mystery database. And the way we're going to talk about adding those to the Student Activity Hub is through the governance committee, and with voting on enhancements and voting on the data source priorities, so that you as a community get a voice in what comes next. What's important to you in the Student Activity Hub? What needs to be added next so that you can get the insights that you need? And then on a more technical front, if you're having issues with your BI tool, be it Cognos or Tableau, or you feel that one of the joins is incorrect or the data doesn't match ISIS, you can submit a ServiceNow ticket to the BIA team. And with your screenshots of ISIS and your knowledge of the system, we'll be able to follow up and find exactly where that issue is occurring, or we'll help find the expert so that we can all talk together as a community about how is this field being interpreted, how you should be using it. Because BIA is very neutral. Our role in this whole project is to be a neutral central location so that we can help facilitate the communication. We can help facilitate getting you the data you need, how you need it, where you need it, when you need it, without any proprietary bias. Thank you. That's the word. We won't be offended if you tell us we're wrong. We will ask you questions as to why and how you know that. And we don't take sides. So we really are in a position where we can reach out to you and say, hey, what do you need? What do you want? How do we help you get it? And make sure that everybody in the community is participating. So I know we have a couple colleges in here. Can you raise your hands again? Okay, awesome, because I have college questions. Do we have anyone from the pharmacy or medical schools? Okay, I need some of those people. So if you know names, send them to me. So next we're going to talk about data quality and the testing that we're doing right now. We're also going to do a little bit more information about the IGC, the governance, the information governance catalog, and then we'll jump into the fun part, which is the use cases. Yes, Laura.
What is user voice what it sounds like, or is that a tool I don't know about?
It's a tool you don't know about yet.
Do you want to describe what it is?
Yes, I will describe what it is. It is a web tool where you can view the different enhancement requests that have been put in, and then you can vote on which ones you like, and you can add commentary as to why it's important to you. And then you can encourage your team members, your audience to come in and also vote. And that will help the governance committee rank what's important to the community. And then the business intelligence team will come in and we'll do a scope and gather requirements, and we'll provide a level of effort. So that'll help the governance committee decide which data sources come next, which enhancements come next based on community desire and the level of effort. Yeah. Right now, we're doing data quality. As of 7 to 10 days ago, we finally loaded our 10 years worth of data. We have both the BIA team and the data warehouse team entrenched in data quality and testing. We have 220 fields to review. We're reviewing them both at the view level, which is what all of you will have access to see. And we'll get to the PII in a minute. But we're also doing QA on the underlying data. So all of the ISIS data gets loaded into base tables in the Student Activity Hub, and then it gets organized and we put the nice names on it and we show it in the view. This allows us to be continually adding data without impacting what all of you in the community get to use. And it also allows us to create new views and grow and expand based on what the community needs. But it does mean that there's very intensive, very detailed QA work going on. And quite a few of you are impacted by that. Those of you who are subject matter experts and have been joining us for our weekly IGC meetings where we're defining what the fields are and we're refining the detail of, well, what does a current term mean? And what does an undergrad student mean? Does it include transfers? Does it not include transfers? How do we be clear about what the field does include and does not include? So I'd like to take a minute to thank those individuals. If you could stand up or just raise your hand, I'd really like that. Kimberly and Chris. And then from Christine's group, we have Erin and Heidi, we have Michelle, and Laura's been a great help with our ethnicity conversations. And actually Christine's entire group has been really instrumental in helping us decide what to go after and what definitions and who we need to talk to in order to make sure that we're getting the clear definitions on things. So thank you, we really appreciate it. Now, the Information Governance Catalog, you've heard us mention this a couple times. What it is an online metadata dictionary. It's a web tool, so anybody can go in and access it. We do have security groups so that faculty and staff will log in using your standard Active Directory. And we are integrating it with the Cognos and Tableau solutions. So it'll be as easy as a right click, left click, and then you're in the IGC to find the definition of whatever field you want to use. Now, the IGC also allows us to include the business definition and then the entire lineage. So you'll be able to trace that field back through the Student Activity Hub and then down to ISIS. And you can see all of the ETL work that's been done. You'll see any type of logic that we've applied, if we've done any type of formatting, and if there's any related terms. So if you're looking up the word student, you might see that graduate student, undergrad student, transfer student are related terms. And that way you can click through and find a definition that might be more exact for what you want to do. And that's the field that you should use when you're doing your analysis. Now, this is a living system. We will continue to refine the definitions and to add new fields as we introduce them to the Student Activity Hub. This tool is not limited to the Student Activity Hub. Research is using this tool to define all of their analytical fields, And finance has recently started reviewing their terms so they can load their analytical terms into the IGC and therefore use it as their data dictionary. All right, ready for use cases? Yes.
Curious was to find data deficiency, like a missing data, or data is missing from a past record. Are you going to go back and fill that data in? What's the plan?
So the question is, if we find some data that's missing in history, are we going to go back and fill it in? That's a great question because there are quite a few stats that are historical that are not captured in ISIS. Where we can find them in ISIS, we are loading them. Where we can't, we are not making them up. We are starting from our go point and going forward, we will maintain the history on those fields. But if ISIS didn't capture it in the past, there's really very little for us that we can do to determine what that value should be. And then, as Vince said, if it's a value that could be inputted in ISIS now, it was simply overlooked at the time, we will go back to the ISIS data source team and say, hey, can you fill this in? And then once they load the field, Student Activity Hub automatically picks it up. Yes, question?
When you describe the process behind identifying 220 fields, I believe ISIS has thousands of fields. So I'm also pretty convinced that you must have gone through a lengthy process. Can you say at a very high level what the process is?
Yes, so the question is, how did we identify the 220 fields given that ISIS has over 1,000? And the answer to that is Vince. Vince came in with a list of closer to 300 fields, and we applied those fields to what we're using here at UCSD, what we have available to us in ISIS, and we ended with 220 for phase 1. Keep in mind that there are other fields in ISIS that we would love to bring in based on what the community is looking for. So we are open to any other fields that Vince did not have in his list, but you would like to add to the list that we can bring into Student Activity Hub. But yeah, the original list did come from Vince. Any other questions? Yes.
It's also important to note that these 220 fields aren't necessarily just flat ISIS fields. There's a lot of calculations that go on, and
Let me repeat this. So I think it's important to understand that the 220 fields aren't just straight ISIS fields. There's a lot of calculations that go on, and that's what will be exposed to you, not necessarily the underneath fields. And so one field in a view might be comprised of 6, 7, 8 different ISIS fields. So when they say 9 tables in Student Activity Hub, it's really more like 70 or 80 ISIS tables that I'm pulling in. Taking data that is important for these calculations and putting them together in a way that the views will then aggregate things and search for, like maybe the first time and the last time to give you, it figures out retention numbers, things that aren't in ISIS, but that would be useful to an analyst.
so a lot of fields are defined based on many other fields.
Right.
So the last statement was that a number of fields are derived from other fields, and the answer to that is yes. We have also taken fields like current term, which might be, I know it's not the current term, but it's the one that pops into my head, fall term 2016, and we'll provide it to you as fall 2016, but we also provide it to you as FA 16. And we also provide it to you as an ID so that you can sort according to our school years. So some of those fields are condensed and some of them are expanded based on what the community likes to use in their analytics. Okay. So we're going to walk through 3 different use cases. I'm going to ask you to put yourself in the shoes of a user of the Student Activity Hub. These use cases are based on the feedback that we've gained from you, but They do have our own little spin on it, so if they're not 100% correct, please don't hold it against me. You know, just be communal. Collegial, thank you. The first use case is if you're doing a college review. So say, for example, you're an analyst and you work for a very specific college. You've been asked to gather several lists from some of your users. So part of the Student Activity Hub is that the Business Intelligence and Analytics group will be providing the data to you, and then you'll be doing your own analysis. So you may have your own set of customers who are coming to you and asking questions. They may be higher ups who are not as comfortable with the tools. They may be managers who have other responsibilities, and you're the analyst of the group. So you're the one compiling the lists, but somebody else is going to be using the data. Our first assumption is that we're defining sophomores as students who are in the iPEDS cohort of 2016. This means that they started school at your college during the fall of 2016. And our assumption too is that we're only looking at the students that applied to your college first. We do have metrics on the first college versus current college so that you can see where the students started and where they may have gone to while they were at UCSD. So the questions we're looking for, the questions we've been asked to address are, we want a list of sophomore students that have a high school GPA, and Mohan stepped out, but a low UCSD GPA. And then we want another list of sophomores with a low percent passed during their first year. A third list of sophomores that have completed less than 20 units. And then finally, we want a historical analysis of where students are going when they leave our college. In the BI tool, we've put together these lists in one report. It's a tabbed report, so your user can go into Cognos and move between the tabs to look at the different lists that they've asked for. I have a reminder here that the student PID is only available to those in the applicable Active Directory group. So if your customer doesn't have access, they won't be able to see the student ID. That helps us make sure that we maintain governance over the security and the access of where the PID is going. We've included the cohort they started in, their high school GPA, and their UCSD GPA. Now you have your list of students. The question is, what do you want to do with them next? Do you want to use them as a filter so that you can do analytics on what classes they're taking, what grades are they getting? Are they doing any type of athletics? How are they participating in the community? From here, you have your central group that you can do further analysis on. Or the person you talk to may decide that high GPA is only 4 and above. Maybe this list is too long for them for whatever their purposes are. So they can give you further criteria on how to narrow down your list. Our second list is students who have a low percentage passed. They may have completed all of their classes, but if they didn't pass their classes, how are they being successful at UCSD? Yes?
Sorry, there was a question that came a bit ago. It says, who sets the low percent passed? Is that the user or built in? Same for low first year.
So the question is, who sets the low first year and low percent passed? That would be you guys. Part of the analysis is determining what is low. You might at first go with your gut and say, I think 10% is low. You look at the numbers, you have to acknowledge that 20% is more of the low individuals that you're trying to target. We as a BI team don't set definitions of low or high. You as a community would need to do that. And if you as a community came back to us and said, across the board at all the colleges at UCSD, we'd like to define low as this, then we as a BI team can implement that for you so that everyone's on the same page.
I think maybe it's important to point out that you're just acting, sorry. I guess it's important to point out that in this scenario, you're acting as an analyst, right? So maybe there's some groundwork that you've done ahead of time to come up with what that definition of low might be. In addition to maybe other definitions, right? So,
Yeah, that's a good point, because low at your college or low for a sophomore might be very different at a different college or for a different cohort, or for a different grade level, or even between grad and undergrad? That's a good question. But we as a BI team, we can provide you with their attempted units, their percentage complete, their percentage passed, some of those basic calculations that everyone will hopefully be using. Our next question was a list of students that have, yes, question.
So I just wanted. I wanted to confirm, is this a view that you built for people to use? Or is this a report?
This is a report.
That is a report. Okay.
Yep. Yep. So we provided the view that has all of the enrollment and demographics information joined correctly together. And then you as an analyst go in and you build these reports. So in this use case, you are the analyst. This is the output that you have created. Yep. Another question.
This is in Cognos?
That is the pop quiz for the end of my presentation.
Okay, well, here's my question. So if you were fiddling with what should count as low, you want to like visualize the distribution and see if there's some natural humps or cutoffs, or is that possible with whatever tool we're going to have?
Yes, it is. Yep. That's a good question, and that allows me to take a moment to say all the visualizations that you're going to see today in this presentation can be made both in Cognos and Tableau. We're not calling them out. At the end, we'll do a little hand raising to see who can tell which ones are Cognos and which ones are Tableau, because the point is, for our team, we're agnostic. Whatever tool you are most comfortable in, whatever tool best suits your purposes is the tool that we feel that you should be using and the tool that we will support you with. Now, we provide support, and we'll talk later about the training for both tools, but we're not going to force you to use a tool that you're not comfortable with. And we can also help point you in the direction of training so that you can do the visualizations you want in both tools, in either tool, because both tools will do it. Yeah. So, for this report, we're looking at those who have taken a low number of credits during their first year. And by low, right now we're just defining it as 20. That number, of course, can change. Now, as an analyst, if you provide this to your manager and say, for example, for this use case, the manager comes back and says, great, now I want you to write up a paper on this so that I can bring it to a meeting and maybe we can publish this for the department's use. We're going to want to make it in PDF. It's got to look super nice. And so that's what you do. You go in with a report that you started. You can save it as a new report and start adding other features. You can add the UCSD logo. You can add different color combinations. You can add the text that you'd like to include. Keep in mind that when you export this report to PDF, if it includes student personal information, you are now responsible for what happens to that information. When it's in the environment, when it's in Cognos or on Tableau server, we facilitate the security on that. But once it becomes a saved document to your desktop, then you become responsible for it. And we've vetted this with the IT security group. They have applications that do run and monitor people's laptops and desktops to make sure that we don't have things like social security numbers and other PII out there and roaming free. So this is just a reminder. It's also a reminder that you can do pixel perfect documentation and reports within the analytical tools. I know the biology department has a number of reports that they do, that they put together, and they have a really nice booklet. One of the great things about this community is that you can show off things like that, because I'm sure other departments would really love to be able to utilize things like that. And then just be able to save it to a new folder, change the department name, change a couple other filters, and now you both have the same look and feel, the same branding, the same type of information, and you have a community that's really enabling each other to be successful. And then our last one is college movement. So we're looking at students who started with John Muir and then moved into a different college. We're not talking about poaching. We're talking about analyzing why a student left. Maybe these are the students that you want to follow up with and say, well, what need were we not meeting? Do you feel more successful? just to find out what you can better do to either facilitate them staying with your college or facilitate identifying those who do or would do better at a different college. This has no PII on it. So this is the type of analytics that you can make if you're in that Active Directory group that is not a P4 group. Any questions on the college use case? Yeah, yeah.
I was just trying to, is movement from the college in the second column to John Muir?
No, it's starting in John Muir and then going to the second college. Yes, question.
Are those people who, on their application, selected John, sorry, are those people who in their application TCC selected Muir as their primary, their first choice college and then were placed in other colleges, or were they actually students enrolled at Muir and then moved?
They were actually enrolled in Muir and then moved. So this is the fun data that you're going to get to play with if you're a beta user, and these are the great questions that you can come back to us and we can help facilitate adding more information to the IGC so that you can look that up directly, or making the naming conventions more clear, or just double checking that the numbers are correct. And now I'm going to change off of it. Okay.
Room full of analysts.
Yep, yep. Okay, our next use case is on a course review. So our department is reviewing a course. There's several faculty involved. We have more than one professor who is the instructor throughout the year based on the term that's being provided. And they all can go into the same location in Student Activity Hub, pull up the same dashboard and be looking at the same information and click through the same charts before the meeting or during the meeting so they can really facilitate the conversation about, are we meeting the students' needs? So what are you looking for? Your assumption is that we're currently in spring of 2017, and we're looking to see, is the course attendance growing? Are we offering enough sessions? Does the class size negatively affect the average GPA? For this dashboard, we're looking at the course of Advanced Data Structures. Our spring of 17 GPA, which has just ended. Our GPA is 2.98. Historically, our overall GPA is 2.88. We're currently offering 2 sections, and we're currently, for this last term, only had 1 instructor. Okay, wish I had a little pointer. The chart in the middle on the left in the orange is our student growth, our student attendance. So as you can see, we've been growing and growing and growing, and then we had a spike and now we're down a little bit. It would be up to the faculty and the staff to understand, to research into why is that. Are we not advertising as much as we used to? Have we changed the requirements for certain majors so that they no longer need to take the course? Are we offering alternate courses instead of this one? That's some of the flavoring and the coloring that your faculty and staff are going to know that the numbers can't provide, but really will help you tell the story of what the numbers are trying to say. The blue chart in the middle on the right is the class section count. For a long time, we only offered 1 section. And then a couple terms ago, we went with 3, and then we went with 6 when our attendance was super high. But now we're back down to 1. Question?
Questioning, is this with the same instructor back from 08 all the way through 17?
I highly doubt it. You'll be able to look that up in Student Activity Hub, but that wasn't one of the things I thought of when I was building this dashboard. But it does bring up the really great point that these analytics are going to drive questions. You're going to have questions, you're going to go into Student Activity Hub, you're going to build your dashboards and your charts, you're going to take it to a meeting, and it's going to drive more questions. And that's exactly what we expect. We're here to facilitate your access to the data so that when you get those more questions, you can go back in and you can dive deeper. And then if there's something that you don't have, say for example, you don't know if how long the faculty member has been here at UCSD, maybe that's a factor for you. whether or not they're having their teacher's assistant do the actual presentations, whether it's a lab or a discussion. Those type of things, if they're not in Student Activity Hub, you can come back to us and say, hey, this is really key information. I'd like to know this. And we can add it to our enhancement list, and then you all can vote on it and say, you know what, that person's idea from a different college, that's great. We need that over here too. So these questions are really good things. They generate lots of good stuff for the entire community. So keep them coming. Now across the bottom, we have a chart which is the average student, average students per section in the blue. That's the number of students per section per term. And then the orange is the average GPA. Now, when I built this, I expected to see the orange take a dip every time the blue went up. That wasn't the case. So I would say this needs further analysis. Maybe there's other factors that are more significant to the GPA than the size of the classroom. Who knows? Any questions? Oh, I can make that chart bigger. Any questions on a course review use case? Oh, sorry.
For the enrollment counts, are you offering different looks of when you have them? What?
We will.
So is this third week? Is this end of term? Is this in?
For today's purposes, it is the end of term. We will have third week available in our census views.
Is it that be something that people are interested in comparing the beginning of the term and the end of term?
Yep. Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Let's go on to a use case about a student review. Now you are an academic advisor and you're working with individual students. From the Student Activity Hub, you're able to enter that student's name or ID and see a dashboard of their performance here at UCSD. Now you do need to be in the P4 group in order to see this information. So it will be, again, Active Directory controlled. And then you can work with the student to review their degree plan and help them identify the best way to be successful at UCSD. Some of the things you can use this dashboard to look for are they successful currently at UCSD? And I know your first question, what do you mean by successful? That again is going to be something that you'll need to define as a community, whether it's a community of academic advisors, community of a college, community of you overall. It might be GPA related. It might be that they're taking the correct number of, or the optimal number of units per term. It may be that they are moving towards their major in a specific number of years, that they're on track to graduate when they want to graduate. Because you can have a 4.0 in all the courses you want, but if you're not working towards the goal of graduation, you could be here for 8 to 10 years. So successful really is going to be something that the community or you as an analyst will define when you're building your reports and your dashboards. So have they been successful in the past, as in high school or at UCSD? Are they on a positive, negative, or neutral trend when it comes to their grade point average? How about their units completed trend or their units passed trend? And what grades are they getting in the different courses? So this student, for example, is an undergraduate student. And you can swap that with the student's name or with their high school name or their major or their degree or a combination of their degree and major. It's up to you. They were getting a 4.16 in high school, but now they're at a 1.93 here at UCSD. Big question is why? This is something that you can follow up with the student or dig deeper into the data. They've attempted 124 units, which means they've signed up for that many, but they've only completed 66. And of those 66, they've only passed 50. The chart we have in the upper left-hand section is the average GPA. As you can see, per term, it has been declining, and then it took a little increase, but it's never broached a 3. In the bottom left, we have units completed per term. The bars are the units that they have completed. The line is the units they have passed. So their coursework has stayed even, but their passing grades have declined. And then for fall of 17, we don't have any grades yet. That's why it's bottom out at 0. And then on the right side, we could see their courses and their grades. You could see they really did well in the city and social theory and urban world systems. Maybe they really like those better than the other classes they're taking. But they have lower grades in general chemistry, linear algebra, physics and mechanics. Maybe those classes are harder. Maybe those classes average a B or a C across the board for all students. Maybe this is typical grades. As somebody who's not in the data every day, all day, there's a lot of interpretations that I can make that aren't founded on experience. You as the analysts have the experience, you have the knowledge, you have the day-to-day activities, you see the students, you work with the students. So what you're going to build is going to be far more meaningful than anything I can come up with. So I'm really excited to see what you as a community will be building and what dashboards you will be seeing and what trends you're going to be focusing on and what definitions you're going to be coming up with for what is success. Any questions on the student dashboard? Okay, and we have a little demo. Before we get to the demo, can anyone tell me, is this a Cognos dashboard or a Tableau dashboard? Let's do a hands up for Cognos. And my team doesn't get a count. Hands up for Tableau. Okay, good mix. How about this one? Hands up for Cognos. Okay, hands up for Tableau. Okay, and I see some of you are not voting, a little shy. How about this one? Hands up for Cognos. Hands up for Tableau. Okay, I'll let you know the secrets. These are Cognos reports. This one is a Tableau dashboard. And this is a Cognos dashboard. So when Student Activity Hub goes live, we will be posting a blank page where you will have links that will jump you directly into Cognos or directly into Tableau based on whatever tool you're most comfortable in. We'll have the link based on the information, the view that you're going to be looking for. We're focusing first on enrollment demographics. We'll also have an enrollment demographics based on third week or census view. And then we'll have a coming soon section so you know what we're working on next. On that blank page, you'll be able to go in and just click on. Okay, let's see if it'll show. Okay, it popped up on my screen. Okay, I'm gonna have to change my view because there's no way I can mouse and do this at the same time.
Folks can see it on the Zoom.
Yeah. Okay, so let me. Okay, there you go. So now I'm in Cognos. I can click on my pencil icon and then click on my chart icon. Let's say I want to make a map. So go ahead and click on map. And then it brings me the information that I can use from the Student Activity Hub, either enrollment or demographics. I'm going to open up student and scroll down to permanent address state. It grays the states that are applicable. And then I can also bring in student count to change the colors based on which states have the most students. Then which state are we getting the most students from? Surprise, surprise. And then I can shrink this and I can make it bigger in my display. I can move it around as much as I want, and I can add more information. I can add more filters. I can focus in. But that's how quick and easy you can get started. That's all I want to demonstrate, is that you can get in, you can get started, and you can get going. Now, if I go back to my slide and I click on my Tableau link, again, it will ask you for access. Your access is driven off of the same Active Directory groups. So if you have access, if you're in the group now, you don't have to re-sign up for Tableau. You'll already have access. Also, if you would like to use both Cognos and Tableau, that's perfectly acceptable. Okay, I'm in a blank workbook. My edit is a pencil down in the bottom right-hand corner. I wish it was bigger for presentation purposes. And you'll notice that the information you have access to in Tableau is exactly the same as what you have access to in Cognos. We're working to organize them the same way. Eventually the organization will be exactly the same too. But the folder names are the same and the field names are the same. So if I want to make, say I want to make a, I'm going to bring in student zip code. Did I grab it? Student zip. Okay. So I brought in student zip code. And in the upper right, there's a Show Me button. Now, these are the visualizations that Tableau is recommending. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the map that it's recommending. And this is another thing that our team is working on during the QA and testing phase, is making sure that the performance of both tools, is equal. And optimized. Thank you. It doesn't matter if they both are equally 4 minutes of running time.
I have a question also.
Yes.
It looks like that you're accessing Tableau through, a web interface. And I think a lot of folks access Tableau through the desktop. What's the difference, and is there an option to access it through the web for Student Activity Hub?
We're working out the details on that. I am accessing it through the web right now because it's the easiest way to jump in and get started. But for your Tableau developers who spend a lot of time in there, they like to use, and the preferred tool is the desktop tool because it has the full capabilities. The web tool is relatively new. Well, I don't want to say relatively new, but it's still being developed by Tableau. So there are certain limitations that you run into in the web tool that you don't run into in the desktop tool. And if you have Tableau desktop already, you can definitely use it. You can jump out to the Tableau server in QA and access the data. And then when you're ready, you can publish your information up to Tableau production. Yeah, you will be able to. So would you like me to bring up Tableau Desktop and show how to do that? Okay.
And does the web tool require the same license as the desktop?
That's one of the things that we're working the details out on. For those of you that are not familiar with Tableau and do not have Tableau, the desktop developer tool does require a license. And on our Blink page, if you go to Blink and look up business intelligence, you can find the dollar amount for that license. Okay, I need to go to remote desktop. Cognos, on the other hand, is free. We have an enterprise license for them. So if I'm a developer, I already have my Tableau development tool. I can open up Tableau Desktop, make sure that I am connected to Tableau QA, and then I can click on, under to a server, I can add Tableau server, click on that, and I'll search for Student Activity Hub, SAH. From there, you'll see what you have access to. I get to see lots of other stuff. And you'll go ahead and click on the Student Activity Hub data source that you have access to. If I click back to sheet 1, you'll see this looks exactly like the web tool. This is where the web tool and the desktop look the same, and for the most part act the same. There's some functionality that you lose in the web tool, but I understand that Tableau is working to enable all of the functionality to be on the web tool, sorry. So what I can do is I can grab, let's say I want to do something a little bit different. I can grab state, and I can grab student count, and now that I have state and student count on display, Tableau is suggesting a variety of other charts. So I can do a quick bar chart. Tableau has a variety of visualizations. One thing that I tell everybody when I talk to them is if you can't explain the chart, I don't suggest using the chart. Because you will be in a meeting where someone will call you on it. And if it's me, it will be me. Again, if you can explain the chart and it's the best visualization, then go for it. It's great to be able to educate your audience and introduce them to a new chart type or a new visualization, or really draw their eye to the message that you're trying to share. Question?
On the data access, because there's the IA team and then there's a security team, making sure that we're working together for current state versus future state. So maybe some of this might be available, but maybe it's challenging versus in the current state. I'm thinking from desktop licenses and things like that. So I think I talked to Judy about it. I don't know. Some of these things, are they going to be available? Can we get to the server from the desktop license?
Yes.
You can?
Yes, you can. As long as you're in the correct Active Directory group, you can.
Okay.
Yep. So let's see.
Well, not today, but you will be.
Yeah, when we launch. When we go live. All right. Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
So the access control is going through Active Directory.
Yes.
In the meantime, I also know campus has been had identity management initiatives. So is this AD based access control going to stay in the long run, or your vision is going to be changed?
Well, our team has little influence over the decisions that they make there, but we're definitely involved in the conversation so that they're aware that we are impacted. So any change that they might make to Active Directory or how they secure any data, we are aware of it and we take the appropriate steps to make sure we're in sync with them. And I think, Brett, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we use Active Directory in a multitude of ways, in addition to just.
Brett, can you hang on just for a second? I want to make sure the people on the phone hear this too, because it's very important.
Although people on the phone, I don't think are hearing this, but anyway, so yeah, I mean, we use Active Directory to secure a multitude of things in addition just to things related to the BI and analytics space. So clearly, anything that's secured through Active Directory is going to be considered as part of the IAM project. I think primarily what they're looking at is the authentication mechanism, not the authorization mechanism, right? So we'll continue to use Active Directory as it is, but we'll potentially replace out things like Shibboleth and those things that we're using for the authentication part. Okay.
One more follow-up?
Yep.
So the AD groups, are they specific AD groups?
So the question is about these AD groups. Are you able to leverage local departmental divisions, AD groups, or these are specific AD groups managed by
They are specific Active Directory groups, and I believe we have them listed somewhere. Yes. These groups are currently already being used to secure student data. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to use something that has already been vetted, is already out there, and is already accepted by the community.
Sarah, can you explain how these line things?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. One other thing that we've done is because these groups are already in use, they are being they're being administered by Access Link. So anyone who's new and wants to be added to the group can go to Access Link and request access to the group they feel is appropriate for their position here at UCSD. And then the appropriate team will review that and either approve or deny it. Again, that's not the BIA team. We do not approve any of the access that is granted or is not granted. We simply facilitate by making sure that it's implemented correctly. Robert, did you have a question? Okay, he said it can wait. Any more questions? You ready to talk about training? In case you didn't notice, Tableau did finish. And this is a look at what the visualization is. And again, we're working to make sure that we're optimizing both Tableau and Cognos. All right, training. So the role of BIA here at UCSD is to make sure that we facilitate and give you as much access to your data as we possibly can. We do love to train. Unfortunately, we are a small team and don't have as much time to train as we would like to. We have to choose between getting you access to new data and new data sources and enhancements versus training. And I think you're going to ask for more data than you're going to ask for more training. That's just my guess. So what we have done is that we've made sure that our Blink site is updated with the latest and greatest links to online training for both Cognos and Tableau. Tableau has a really robust set of short clips that you can watch to help you learn how to do different things in Tableau. And Cognos has a whole YouTube set of videos where you can do the same thing. On our Blink site, we also have guidance on how to choose Tableau or Cognos. If you have not picked your BI tool, if you're considering doing both, if you're considering switching, I suggest you check out that page. And if you still have questions, go ahead and use the email link on the bottom of the page to ask our team further questions. We will, of course, encourage you to talk to your community friends. There are different groups who are using different tools, and they can talk to you about some of the challenges they faced, some of the challenges they've overcome, and some of the great things that they love about the tool that they're using. The BIA team is going to be very neutral. We also have Pluralsight, which has really great training on how to create robust data visualizations. So if you're not quite sure how best to communicate the message or which chart is the best chart for the data that you're looking at, this is a good place to go and look up a couple articles. They're always posting new information, and it's really doesn't matter what BI tool you're using. You could be using it, whether it's Cognos, Tableau, or other. These articles are really applicable across the board. And then, of course, the IGC. If you have any questions about the definitions, what do we mean by transfer student? What do we mean by cohort? What do we mean by term? The IGC is available to you. It has great information in it. We've spent a lot of time working with the subject matter experts to be as detailed as possible. And it has the whole lineage so that you can trace it back to the exact field in ISIS. You might find that what you're expecting doesn't line up in ISIS with the fact. So if you're starting in ISIS and trying to move forward and kind of guess what the SAH name is, it's going to be close, but the IGC will help you confirm whether you're right or whether it's slightly different, has a little bit more detail to it. And then in December, we will be offering specific training. One session for Cognos, one session for Tableau. The vendors have both been very gracious and offered to come in for free and facilitate the training. They're going to do an hour of their tool-specific training, introducing you to the latest and greatest of their tool. And then the next hour is going to be me talking to you about Student Activity Hub, about the specifics of the data, where it's coming from, how it's organized, what you can and what you want to do with it. And then, of course, Q&A. You are invited to attend one, both, neither. We're not going to force you. We encourage you to attend in person because that, of course, is always the best. Well, for a lot of people, it's the best training. I'm not going to say everyone. But there will be Zoom offered too. So we'll have a 2-hour Cognos, a 2-hour Tableau, and then starting in January, we'll start the community of practice, where we'll have a 1-hour Zoom session where you can come in and you can ask any question you have. It can be a data question. It can be a what are we doing next question. It can be a how are you using this question. It's going to be very focused on Student Activity Hub. It's not going to be specific to Cognos or Tableau. If I'm answering the question, I'll give you an answer that is as generic as possible. And you can always email our team or we have Slack channels for Cognos-specific questions and Tableau-specific questions. But really this community is going to be about the student data, the Student Activity Hub. How is QA going? Now that QA is finished, what are the issues that you're still resolving? Or what are the enhancements you're working on next? Or, you know, this group says they don't have access to the data. Can you remind me how to get them access? Things like that. And everybody is open, is invited to that question, to that community, whether or not you're doing analytics or whether or not you just want to know about what's going on. So that is our training plan. And if you have any questions about that, you can go ahead and ask me now, or you can ask me later. So we're gonna open up the floor for more Q&A. Yes.
I have a question about Tableau server updates. Right now, as far as I know, our server is still at 10.2. Is that correct? Or we updated like? You want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Just how it's going to happen. I guess the process in the future going forward.
Okay, Judy's going to answer that as soon as she gets to a mic. That's fine.
I'll stand next to you. So, we actually are. We have 10.4. We had a problem with the 10.3 release, so we pulled that back. We have 10.4 on our sandbox currently. So hopefully those of you that are Tableau developers are subscribed on Tableau Developer L, which is a mail list we use for communication about that tool. There will be a communication coming out soon once we've looked at it on our sandbox, which is our internal way of looking at it before you get there. We'll be putting out communication on when it will hit the QA. Our standard is to put it onto the QA first. We will give you a week to review on QA and let us know if you see any issues, etc. If we don't hear anything, we'll go ahead and push that up to prod, both prods. We actually have 2 now in case some of you aren't aware. So that is the plan for 10-4.
And that's actually our standard process when we're upgrading both Tableau and Cognos, that we do install it on our sandbox or in Cognos, the dev environment, and the BIA team vets it first. And if we discover any issues, then we do not move forward until those issues are resolved. And after that, we move it to QA. And we know that you as analysts build some bigger, flashier things than we do. So you have specific things that you'll want to test when it's in the QA environment. And we highly encourage you to do that. You do have a full week to do that. And then we move it to production. See, I'm checking the chat to see if we have any questions there. Yes.
Will you tell us right now how to join Tableau Developer Al?
Okay. Mara, we're going to send you some names. Mara is our project manager. She's on the phone. We'll send her your names and she'll add you. Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't remember how to do that. Yes.
So for people who tend to use some other programs, maybe some of us are old school, we're still using SPSS or Excel, are we going to be able to access the databases and utilize those programs?
Well, SPSS is definitely on our list. We are aware of it, and we want to make sure that it's compatible with the Student Activity Hub. So again, that's one of the things that we want to hear from the community. How much of a driver is that? Where does that go in our list of enhancements and next steps? And then when it comes to Excel, like Brett said earlier, we'd like to encourage that the Excels move up into Student Activity Hub. So if the Excel is a list that you have that you're maintaining of, say, students that attend your after classes seminar once a month, and it's not maintained anywhere else. Well, our team would like to help you find a place to maintain it so it's in a real data source, and then absorb it into Student Activity Hub, because it becomes part of the bigger picture of community involvement. Are the students involved in taking advantage of all of the programs they can, all of the academic assistance they can?
Are you trying to make it from Excel or do the analytics Excel?
Actually, I don't really use Excel.
Okay.
I use SPSS and, running empirical data, just being able to do hypothesis testing and so forth with the data. So I just want to make sure that's still available to be able to run things in SPSS.
So we are working, as Sarah said, we're working through the strategy on that, but direct connections from those laptops are something that security that we're running on. So we've been working with the IR team, with Robert over there, on how to facilitate that.
Okay, yeah, and IR as well. So modeler and things like that are, we're super critical to our work.
Yep.
Statistics is different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're using
Okay. So
different products.
for the people on the phone, we had a question about SPSS statistics and SPSS modeler. And correct me if those names are a little bit off.
No, they're different products used. The SPSS statistics and SPSS, this is getting the weeds. Modeler are different products used for different purposes, but statistics is heavily utilized in IR. So we'll have that. I haven't looked at that.
We'll be partnering with you.
Yeah. So for the people on the phone who couldn't hear Judy's answer, business intelligence groups, we are partnering with IR to make sure that SPSS can fully connect to Student Activity Hub in a manner that IT security approves. So we're working with IR, we're working with IT security, and it is on the roadmap. Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, it looks like a lot of the questions on the phone have already been answered. Thank you, community. All right, that's it. Thank you. Do you want to stop the recording?